If our society is like a ship, one thing is undeniable. Everybody knows that we're in the middle of a storm and treacherous waters. If our society is like a house, everybody knows that the foundations are really wobbly right now. People in different camps point to different reasons. Oh, the problem is COVID. No, the problem is the deep state. No, the problem is Trump. The problem is white supremacy. Oh, no, the problem is woke ideology. Whatever the case, but I think it's pretty obvious to all of us that we're in a particularly volatile and effervescent historical moment, yeah? Now, I think that these moments can be very promising. It's moments like these in history where we're encouraged to think more deeply about how we ought to live. How do we fit in society, and what should government look like? What is true justice? And is there even such a thing? Is there an actual meaning to life, or is it just kind of up to everyone and let's hope that chaos doesn't ensue? It's these questions that prompted me to start this little series on natural law and human rights and so forth. And I don't pretend to lecture you guys like I have all the answers to these questions, but the only way that we can even hope to reach some answers is by sharing our thoughts and opinions and engaging with each other in dialectical conversation. This is what philosophy is, and it's what the greatest minds in history have told us, right? So yes, I do have opinions about these things, and I do think that we can find ways to calm the storm and to steady the foundations of our civilization. And I don't want to hide the ball. I'll tell you exactly, in a nutshell, what I think we need to do to bring stability to our civilization, and perhaps more importantly, to find meaning in our lives. And look, it shouldn't be a surprise answer. The answer is, of course, to humble ourselves and to live how God tells us to live. I'll explain more about this in detail. I'm Jim Horan. I'm the Worldview Bro. In several of his works, Friedrich Nietzsche ruminates over the idea that God is dead. What many people don't understand is that Nietzsche isn't throwing confetti and drinking champagne when he says this. He simply observes that modern philosophy led to atheism, and he himself was an atheist, but Nietzsche is astounded by his intellectually inferior colleagues and the elites of high society who think that they're really cool when they say that they're atheists. He's astounded by their stupidity, from his perspective, because they don't even come close to guessing the ramifications of their atheism. For Nietzsche, and he's right about this, disbelief in God is a disbelief that there is any transcendent morality, aka a natural law, like we've been discussing in our latest shows. The death of God means the death of good and evil, the death of true justice. Nietzsche says this in his book, Twilight of the Idols. He says that when one gives up the Christian faith, one pulls the right to Christian morality out from under one's feet. By breaking one main concept out of Christianity, the faith in God, one breaks the whole. Nothing necessary remains in one's hands. The reason Nietzsche is disgusted with his fellow atheists is because they renounce the God, but they appear to have kept the morality. His point is that if you really believe that morality is just a social construct, just shadows on the cave that the puppeteers are creating, then how pathetic you must be to be content with just watching the show. Nietzsche's point is you be the puppeteer. You live by your own standard, and certainly don't let any foreign morality dominate you. But he doesn't really mean you. He means those of you who are strong like him, the Übermensch, strong enough to understand the ramifications of God is dead, and to step in the power vacuum and exert your own power. Those who are not Übermensch are really just pawns to be used in the vision of this Übermensch aristocracy. You think I'm kidding? He says this in Beyond Good and Evil. I don't know how if Nietzsche had like a PR team, how this statement would fare. I can't imagine Nietzsche living in a Twitter world. He says this in Beyond Good and Evil. The essential thing in a good and healthy aristocracy, however, is that it experiences itself not as a function, whether of the monarchy or the commonwealth, but as their meaning and highest justification, that it therefore accepts with a good conscience the sacrifice of untold human beings who, for its sake, for the sake of the aristocracy, he means, for its sake, must be reduced and lowered to incomplete human beings, to slaves, to instruments. Their fundamental faith simply has to be that society must not exist for society's sake, but only as the foundation and scaffolding on which a choice type of being, the Übermensch, is able to raise itself to its higher task and to a higher state of being. He's seriously telling late 19th century high society, the Bezos and I don't know, Schwab or whatever of their time, hey, you guys don't believe in God, so can you please start acting like it? We need some more slavery around here. None of this turn the other cheek and the rights of man and all this stuff, okay? Nietzsche just wants some consistency. If you don't believe in transcendent morality, then please spare me your parsimony and crocodile tears for humanity and the poor and all that crap. Now, here's the point, y'all. Here's the point I want to make. If it's true that God is dead, if it's true that there is no transcendent good and evil, if there is no natural law, then Nietzsche is obviously right. We should never feel guilty about doing or not doing what society tells us to do, okay? And instead, we should put ourselves in a position to tell society what to do. Get yourself in a position to be the puppeteer calling the shots instead of one of the masses to be led and exploited. If Nietzsche is right, then we are certainly a bunch of dumb sissies if we have any qualms about murdering or enslaving or stealing. So what is it, y'all? Are we weak? Or is it that murdering and enslaving and stealing are transcendentally evil? Now, as you've probably heard me say before, this is precisely what Raskolnikov asks himself in Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment. So, no, I think Nietzsche is wrong, of course. And I think that Dostoevsky is right. In that novel, Crime and Punishment, Dostoevsky is telling us, no, that guilt that Raskolnikov felt, it's not just weakness. It's your soul functioning the way it's supposed to. I mean, sure, right and wrong aren't physical realities. They can't be viewed under a microscope. But the fullness of reality isn't purely material. That's one of the greatest ailments of our modern age. Okay, reality certainly has the spiritual component as well. Oh, but how can you prove that a natural morality exists if you can't do it scientifically? No, it certainly can't be proven scientifically. In a certain sense, it can't even be proven. Why do I say that? This is because right and wrong, natural law, it's not something that's proved, it's something that's perceived. It's perceived with your soul, just like sunlight is perceived with your eyes. This is what Thomas Jefferson means when he writes that the certain natural rights provided by the natural law are self-evident truths. They're axioms. They're starting points. They're not something you build up to with argumentation. It's something that you start with because it's as obvious as the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Now, this is also stated in the Bible, by the way. Paul says in the book of Romans, he says, "Indeed, when Gentiles who do not have the law do by nature what the law requires, they are a law to themselves, even though they do not have the law. So they show that the work of the law is written on their hearts. Their consciences also bearing witness, and their thoughts either accusing or defending them. So again, right and wrong are simply perceived in our soul, in our mind, okay? Thomas Aquinas teaches us this too, as we talked about in the last episode. But I should highlight that just like what Jefferson says, Aquinas also teaches that the natural law is self-evident and axiomatic. So, for example, one of the precepts of the natural law, according to Aquinas, is self-preservation. The fact that we have a natural inclination to preserve our own life implies that we have a natural right of life, and symmetrically, this is important, and symmetrically, we have a natural duty to preserve life as much as possible. Certainly, there's a natural law then against murder. This is all self-evident and axiomatic, like I said, just as much as again, like the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. It's a starting point, not something that you build to in a conclusion, okay? Guys, here's the point. If you don't think that murder is transcendentally wrong, okay, wrong by nature, then there is something simply wrong with you. I'm sorry, okay? Maybe you have some kind of a disease. Or like Paul says, it may simply be the case that you're lying to yourself and that you're suppressing that obvious truth. Now, to the point of my video today, why am I bringing all of this up? So, after all, I mean, obviously most people agree on the basics of what I'm calling the natural law. I'm making a big deal about this natural law. Don't all people like agree with these things? What's the problem I'm trying to raise? Well, for a start, that's not quite true. Just like the evil of slavery, what was a glaring injustice in most of the civilized world not long ago, not that it's non-existent today, right? But so likewise, abortion is a good example. Abortion is the most glaring injustice today. I actually think it's in this issue, the issue of abortion, that we see Nietzsche's influence with just special clarity. And I was thinking about this because last week I heard about the state representative in Oklahoma, Forrest Bennett. So this is a pro-abortion guy, right? I mean, he's a leftist guy. He's a pro-abortion guy. And he initially proposed, maybe you guys heard about this, he initially proposed a bill that would make fathers financially responsible for their children at the time of conception, like not at the time of birth, but at the time of conception. He meant it to be a troll to pro-lifers. He tweeted this. He said, if Oklahoma is going to restrict a woman's right to choose, we better make sure the man involved can't just walk away from his responsibility. Okay, so the pro-life camp said, yes. Okay, good. So like after he saw that this was heartily approved by conservatives, he ended up retracting his support for his own bill. I mean, he walked right into it, of course. Obviously, conservatives would support that bill. See, he actually believes that the motivating principle behind the pro-life movement is to stick it to the pregnant woman, okay? To, as they say, to have control over her body. That's obviously false. The motivating principle of the pro-life position is an adherence to natural law, the preservation of human life. That's the first precept, according to Aquinas. And so the first precept obviously goes along with the second precept, right? Well, the second precept is the natural inclination of having a family and rearing the young. Okay, so essentially taking care of your kids. So yeah, it's definitely a part of the natural law to take care of your kid, to be financially responsible for your baby. So, but you can see the contrast in the worldviews here. See, look, the decision to kill the baby growing within you for X or Y or Z reason is really much more along the lines of what Nietzsche was saying about using any resources at your disposal, including people, in order to chart your own course, in order to live your own life. And so State Representative Bennett is projecting his own worldview onto those who have a natural laws worldview. Okay, he assumes that those wanting to stop abortion are motivated in the same way as those who have no qualms in getting an abortion, namely a worldview that doesn't look outward into the universe and trying to figure out what is right or wrong. Okay, but a worldview that looks inward. We've heard it before, right? You have to do what's right for you. You have to find your truth. Right, and we've talked about these matters when we talked about the kinds of freedom number 1 and freedom number 2 and freedom number 3. Obviously, the worldview of Representative Bennett here is that third view of freedom, right? Charting your own course, making your own morality. Well, so again, we've talked about these things before, and obviously I can continue pulling on that thread and we'll be here all day. So I just want to bring it back to the original question. How can we solve the current malaise of our civilization? There's a problem of meaning in the world right now, a meaning crisis. And it goes back to what Nietzsche sneers about. What? Did you think it was going to be peaches and cream when you killed God? Killing God, obviously we're speaking metaphorically, you can't kill God, okay? But by killing God, you've shot yourself in the foot 2 times as a civilization. You now have the existential burden of creating meaning from yourself and for yourself. Okay, Nietzsche knew that wasn't a party because it means there is nothing stable for you to grab onto in the world. It means you're a stranger in the universe. There is a disconnect with nature. You are completely alone, if Nietzsche is correct. Okay? There is no ultimate natural bond between you and any other human being, including your mother. Okay? You can forget what Aquinas says about the natural inclination to living in a family and the natural inclination to living in society. No. The death of God means a sad, depressing solitude. And I think our civilization is suffering from that primarily. I think Dostoevsky would say, duh, of course that's the problem we're seeing. Now, the other way that our civilization has shot itself in the foot is that precisely because this vision of reality is false, the Nietzschean version of vision of reality, because it's false, we deal then with the real, natural, and actual guilt when we don't follow the natural law. And again, the most obvious and predominant example is women, unfortunately, who are tortured with guilt after an abortion. But there are other things, countless. I'm just going with the most obvious. It's also the guilt we feel when we see our communities deteriorate because we've delegated our natural duty to build up our communities. Okay, we've delegated it to the government, and we just retreat to our homes and just watch Netflix, right? Obviously, this has connections to everything that has happened in the last 2 years. Now, also, though, don't get me wrong, there's obviously a hunger for true justice out there. After all, the truth beckons us, okay? But my concern is that we're trying to fulfill the demands of the natural law outside of the natural law tradition. An example of this would be the BLM movement. Yes, this is a movement that seeks justice. Awesome. I love that, right? But if that quest doesn't start from the premise that justice transcends all history and that it transcends all race entirely, then that quest is doomed to failure, okay? You're trying to hammer a Nietzschean square peg into a natural law round hole. I actually delve into the philosophy of critical race theory in this video. If you guys have the time to check that out, I think you'll find it very helpful. So I'm going to leave it there, guys. I hope that you agree with me that the question of natural law is perhaps more relevant now than ever. And at the very least, I hope you learned something from my perspective, even if you don't agree with me. So please drop me a line in the comments to continue the dialogue. If you have any questions, don't forget also to share this with your friends. And so I'll see you next time, guys. God bless you.